Starting now. Hi, I'm Shannon Winton. I'm one of the editors for the Homeworks Editing Collective and part of the group that brings you Writer's Lunch. Before we go too far, Sean, do you want to tell us what we'll be doing next week?
Yeah, next week we're gonna have Ask an Editor, and we're gonna have several different things going on. Basically, we want your questions. For sure, you can join our Discord community. Submit questions there. We have a Patreon as well. We give priority to those questions, and basically, I bounce ideas off of 4 to 5 different editors, and you can bring your questions live as well. So, I Ask an Editor hour. Um, Shannon, what was the topic we had?
We're going to be talking about own voices, hashtag own voices, which is
Yep.
essentially a hashtag that talks about writing from your own perspective, especially
Mm.
if you're from a marginalized community. And even though the majority of us at the editing collective are white, we all do have some sort of perspective that is from a alternate point of view or from an alternate lifestyle, and can speak on it from there, but also the value of listening to people as they talk about their own experiences, rather than make assumptions. So, we're going to be discussing that and then also how to not transgress on a particular community or type of person, in the questions that we've been asked. So, it sounds kind of heavy, but we're going to have a good time. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I did say just a little bit about me, but here's a little bit more so you know who you're taking advice from. Shannon Winton is a developmental editor with over a decade of experience. She's the founder of the Tomeworks Editing Collective, the series continuity editor for Cursed Dragon Ship Publishing, and teacher of classes like editing science fiction and fantasy and the upcoming editing mysteries, thrillers, and suspense class for the Editorial Freelancers Association. As a serial volunteer, she has been the municipal liaison for NaNoWriMo and is the current coordinator for the Houston Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Group. When she's not editing, she's a dedicated cat rescuer and fosterer. This is very true about me. This is also very true about me. Shannon is a dynamic nurse with over 20 years of experience, including surgical trauma, ER, ICU, acute psychiatric care. She's dedicated to ensuring compassionate care across many client populations as review for Medicaid waiver services that benefit clients with intellectual and physical disabilities, including the CLASS, Texas Home Living, and HCM support service programs. She is currently a certified fertility nurse residing in Houston, Texas. This is also true about me. Shannon has fought off rats in the sewers. Yeah, you messed up my presentation, Sean. Shannon has fought off rats in the sewers, come first place in a monkey face blowing competition, and survived being spooned in bed by a 5-foot monitor lizard. One time, she contracted West Nile virus from the mosquitoes on Mary Lou Retton's estate and hallucinated for days. When she's not getting into animal related misadventures, Shannon writes zombie comedy and other delicious nonsense. You can find her fictitious advice column, Dear Agony, Good Advice for Soul Crushing Monsters, on Medium.com. Shannon is probably not secretly raising an army of cats under the guise of being a foster kitty mom. Probably. As you can see, there's a lot of ways to write a bio. And some of them are appropriate for certain audiences, and some of them are appropriate for other audiences, and some of them are appropriate for no audience. So, we're going to be talking today about how to write a bio for your particular audience. On our itinerary, we're going to talk about the actual reason you have to write a bio. Most of us write it because we feel like we have to. We're required to put something in there when we, publish our book. If we have short stories and a collection, they want to know something about us. We're not often doing it because we're thinking about it from the point of view of the audience, but in actuality, let's talk about why we do it for them. We're also going to be talking about common appeals bios use to actually connect emotionally or intellectually with your audiences. We're going to talk about how you can frame your information for different audiences or situations, as well as how the tone you put into your bio impacts that audience. And we'll also distinguish the details you need for a query packet versus things like speaker bios or what you're going to put into your public appearance biographies. We'll
Oh,
also
so many
discuss
bios. Sorry.
so many bios. We'll also discuss review methods to keep a healthy distance or separation in the amount of information you're giving out to random people who may come across your bio. And hopefully, by the end of this, you will have a good skeleton to build off of for these myriad of situations where you may have to tell other people who read your books about yourself. So I hope a number of you already have bios or have at least thought about your bios. And Sean, I will pick on you because I know you will let me.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
the purpose of your bio is this helps sell your book. It also helps you sell your past book or books, and hopefully will help you sell future books. The other things that you can use your bio for would be to show your agents how to market you as an author if they're thinking about buying. Retro. Sean, what's up?
My bad. I tried to let someone in, and you got it to it before I did.
Apologies, guys. So the purpose of the bio is to help you sell your book, present, future, and past. But it also can help you show your agent how to sell you as an author based upon your personality or your history. It also provides authority on subjects, especially if you're writing nonfiction, though we will be focusing mostly on fiction for this. Or how to intrigue prospective leaders to listen to you, especially if you're doing a public appearance. Occasionally, you can use your author bio as a way to show vulnerability. And we don't necessarily want to do this in a manipulative way, but this can help you forge a parasocial bond with your audience, meaning they will feel much closer to you, even if you don't know them, because they know more about tragedies in your life, situations you've overcome, and the waves that you've persevered. Your author bio can also secretly or not secretly be a call to action to find your other exploits, especially if you are a multifaceted author who works in art or music or video. These are ways that you can get a person to go from one touch point to other touch points in your, in your portfolio, basically. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to use your author bio to connect with people. So first things first, I want to do a little class activity. If you do have an existing bio, I would like you to look at it and kind of answer the following questions for yourself. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this particular activity. Does your bio provide more than three details about you instead of expounding on basically one or two specific aspects of your abilities or career? Do these details appeal to your target audience? And does your bio actually sell the kind of thing that you write? Or does it simply summarize you? So, Sean, I am bugging you, and I know you have bios.
Oh, I'm trying to pull up the Word document that has 5 different bios for different situations. Yes,
Yeah, read
that's
one to
correct.
me.
Sorry?
So go ahead and read one for me.
Well, I hadn't had it up yet. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay.
But basically having different ones for different situations is terribly important. For one, because you'll run across different ways that people ask, do you have a 100-word bio? Do you have a 200-word bio? Do you have a bio for an editor? Do you have a bio for like as a writer?
One
And
is a publishing professional.
my favorite one is with short story collections, like submissions and stuff, because those usually go either directly after, a poem or a short story, or potentially at the end of a book. And I'm like, I really want mine to stand out. Absolutely. So my favorite one is very short, and you said it needs 3 different things about you and expanding on things, correct?
Generally speaking, you want to have at least three details about you in different realms of your personality or your exploits. And we'll talk a little bit more about that actually in the next few slides. But if you're just like, oh, I published here, 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 you've really only told the audience one thing, and
Yes.
that's your
So
published author.
So let me ask this, and I'll read it. It's very short. But does this hit those 3 criteria, or is it an outlier? It's just for fun. Sean Morrissey Carroll has been an art critic, acid dealer, butcher, bookseller, cook, curator, hay baler, history teacher, board member, fiction editor, museum guard, political cartoonist, street food vendor, tagger, vintage fashion grader, and algae farmer. He grew up outside Buffalo, New York, and currently lives in Houston, Texas.
So you've given us a ton of fun facts about you.
But just 2 things, where I lived and jobs that I've had. But I think that those jobs explain some things.
Right. They're
It's
definitely points
yeah.
of entry. So, everybody out there, kind of sit there and think if you do have one. I know some of you actually have not written bios before, and that's okay. But if you do have one, I want you to think about those things because often when we come to these, we struggle. Like, why would anybody, listen to me? Oh, it must be because I'm an authority. And then so that's one of the things that we tend to focus on first is that we are an authority or that we have a history of education. And actually, there's a number of other appeals. So I'm not going to run through all of these because we will talk about them all. But essentially, there are ways to appeal to different readers based upon what your audience is looking for and what they're reading or who they're listening to. So the most common one is an appeal to an authority. And I use appeal to authority, and I know that's an actual like term that we use for logical fallacies. Please ignore that. I'm not saying there's something wrong with you being an authority. But authority usually means the degrees, the subjects that you're a subject matter expert in. If you have publications, this is usually an appeal to authority. If you have risen through ranks in sort of the military or in your business or something like that, or if you have made discoveries in your field, appeals to authority are extremely common, especially in nonfiction, where you may be selling a book that you wrote about a subject that you are well versed in, and you're trying to convey to an audience, I am an expert, you should listen to me. They are still also very common in the appeals that people put in their bios for their writing career, especially for literary writers. So this is a nonfiction. Sean, would you read it to me? Read it out for me. But this is a nonfiction bio from Peter Attia, and he wrote The Science and Art of Longevity.
Absolutely. Peter Attia, MD, is the founder of Early Medical. He received his medical degree from the Stanford University School of Medicine and trained at the Johns Hopkins Hospital in general surgery. He also trained at the NIH as a surgical oncology fellow at the National Cancer Institute, where his research focused on immune-based therapies for melanoma. He serves on the editorial board for the journal Aging. He is the host of The Drive, one of the most popular podcasts covering the topics of health, medicine, and longevity. Author of the best-known film. That's not part of it.
Okay, but this is another one. This is specific to nonfiction. So this is Andy Weir, the author of The Martian. Andy Weir built a 2-decade career as a software engineer. That is an appeal to his authority as a hard science masterer, essentially, um, until the success of his first published novel, The Martian, which allowed him to live out his dream of writing full time. He is a lifelong space nerd and devoted hobbyist of such subjects as relativistic physics, orbital mechanics, and the history of manned spaceflight. Again, this is an appeal to the fact that he knows what he is talking about, which is why you should read his books about hard sciences or that have heavy themes, or sorry, heavy world building with the hard sciences. He also mixes a mean cocktail. He lives in California. So these are two versions of how you can use authority to appeal. And I'm not sure why I have lady in that previous slide, but sometimes editors make mistake too. So unfair advantage is similar to your authority. It basically means that you have knowledge or skill sets that make you outstanding in your field or in whatever it is that you're doing that people can't just go take a class on, or they're not going to be able to replicate the way in which you are an authority. So this is things like if you're an inventor of something brand new, if you've had singular experiences most or no other people have had. I've never been to space, but an author who has been to space may be a much more appealing, person for a hard science fiction reader to go search out. And then these also can be quite mundane. They don't need to be off the wall or crazy. They can be things that are special, but in an everyday life kind of way. Survivors of cancer, survivors of abuse, or people who are community organizers who bring people together, who've done things that are pretty normal, but also at the same time exceptional because they were the ones that took charge and did it, or because their experiences were so unique. So this is an example from Joe Haldeman, who wrote The Forever War. He's talking here about his unique experiences in war. Joe Haldeman began his writing career while he was still in the Army. Drafted in 1967, he fought in the Central Highlands of Vietnam as a combat engineer with the 4th Division. He was awarded several medals, including a Purple Heart. Haldeman sold his first story in 1969 and has since written over 24 novels and 5 collections of short stories and poetry. I didn't put the entire bio here, but this one absolutely says he knows more about the traumas of war than you do because his experience, his lived experience, is very unique. And he's writing from that experience. All right, so we're also going to try to convince people to read stuff from us because we are either popular or we can associate ourselves with trustworthy or respectable sources who have essentially already vetted us or approved us as being awesome. So this is Mel Robbins. She was the creator of the Let Them formula. And Sean, why don't you go ahead and read this for me?
Awesome. Other people like me, so you should too. I am associated with other highly esteemed people or communities, so they have vetted my awesomeness.
Well, that's
Mel
what I
Robbins is
wrote.
the
That's not
creator and
her.
host. Sorry, Mel Robbins is the creator and host of the award-winning The Mel Robbins Podcast, one of the most successful podcasts in the world, and a #1 New York Times best-selling author. She has amassed 40 million followers online and is one of the most respected experts in her mindset, life improvement, and behavior change. The Wall Street Journal calls her a billion view podcaster, and Time Magazine says she gives millions of listeners around the globe a reason to believe in themselves.
So,
Billions, millions, best selling, successful.
numbers, names of these different organizations, magazines, journals, and whatnot. So basically, she's saying, I am popular, but there's a reason I'm popular. But because I'm popular, you should believe that I am a good writer. And whether or not, this is true, I'm not gonna say yes or no, but she is utilizing this appeal to her popularity to try to get you interested too. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can say, hey, listen, I have X number of followers who are already interested in my book when you talk to an agent, or even when you're putting your bio on your bio section of your Amazon listing. And it will appeal to people because popularity begets more popularity, or success begets more success. So it's something to think about. One of the other things, and I didn't put it on this slide, sometimes authors use multiple pseudonyms in order to write different styles, but they can actually, indicate their original pseudonym or the original name that they published under and say, this is the pseudonym for so and so for dark fantasy. And so it still uses the brand popularity that they've already built up, but says, I am so good at that. I will be good at this too. So you should buy this book as well. But just know it'll be a little bit different from the thing you originally read from me.
I
Another
definitely love the Shannon Maguire example where she writes under three different names, but that's also a relative of the Stephen King one where the publisher would not let him release books so quickly. So he had to use a different name and I think a different publisher in order to put out more than 2 or 3 books a year, I believe. And I think that might be Shannon Maguire's reason to a degree as well, but it's about genre in her case for sure.
So we also try to exude trustworthiness because trustworthiness makes us seem safer, especially if we're talking about emotionally weighty material. So we may say things that show that we are a caregiver or that we have a history of good deeds. Or that you can trust in me with your emotions, and this specifically will work towards books and materials for usually niche readership. It's not necessarily something you're going to do for a catch-all or a bio that's supposed to be for something that is wide. But this is an example from Brenda Davis. She's the author of The Girl Behind the Gates, which is a fiction story about a woman who is basically uh, taken out of a mental hospital after having been inappropriately imprisoned there for the majority of her childhood and early adulthood. Born and raised in County Durham, UK, Dr. Brenda Davies, psychiatrist, psychotherapist, medium, author, broadcaster, and spiritual teacher, is a very happy mother, grandmother, and great grandmother. She has lived a fascinating life, which has taken her around the world many times. As principal of the Brenda Davis International School of Healing and Spiritual Development, she has taught in England, Ireland, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the US, Turkey, Cyprus, Bali, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and elsewhere. She has loved doing peace and conflict resolution work in many countries that have been ravaged by war. Her great love is Zambia. I don't know why I'm mispronouncing Zambia, where she spent many happy and exciting years. However, she is now happily settled in Wales. So even though she does add a lot of laurels in here, she makes a point of saying, I am a caregiver. I am part of the process of healing. I'm part of your spiritual development. I work to make things peaceful. I am a conflict resolver. These things say, you can trust me with your emotions and your vulnerability. And she writes things that are very traumatic or deal with traumatic experiences. And she's saying, you can trust me. I will take you through this. Familiarity is very common, especially with things that are romps. The author is a lot like you. They could be your friend or your coworker, but they're just better at telling stories. So, Sean, if you're still around, why don't you go ahead and read this one from Rebecca Yaros, which is the sorry, no, you can't.
Gotcha.
Author.
Just starting at She Loves Military.
Yeah, you don't have to do the rest of it, but she does military.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It does say it above it. Okay. All right. Rebecca is a #1 New York Times, USA Today, Sunday Times, and Wall Street Journal best-selling author of over 15 novels, including Fourth Wing, and is always ready to bring on the emotions. She's also the recipient of Colorado Romance Writers Award of Excellence in New Adult for Eyes Turned Skyward from her Flight and Glory series. She loves military heroes and has been blissfully married to hers for 21 years. She's the mother of 6 children and lives in Colorado with her family, their stubborn English bulldog, feisty chinchillas, and a Maine Coon cat who rules them all. Having fostered and adopted their youngest daughter, Rebecca is passionate about helping children in the foster system through her nonprofit, One October.
This is saying, hey, I am really amazing. That first paragraph says, like, look at me, people like me, I am popular, I am successful. But then she's like, I'm just like you. I've had this long-term romance with my military hero husband. I love my chinchillas. I love kids. I love the main cat, and they're a bossy main cat. Woo. Like I'm probably making this seem ridiculous, but what she's doing is saying, I'm like you. I'm likable. And, talking to me or reading my books is like, hearing a story from somebody that who you like, who you're friends with. So using that sort of familiarity endears the author or their persona, at least, to the reader. One of the other things you can use your bio to do is show off your storytelling ability or give a sense of who you are as a writer, what your voice sounds like. And this is an example from Sarah Alderson. She's the author of In Her Eyes, which is a best-selling psychological thriller. And if you read a lot of thrillers, one of the things that you may note is that there is constant movement in the thriller genre. So when you read this, you see how Sarah has put constant movement in her bio. Sarah is a British born, LA based screenwriter and author. Having spent most of her life in London, Sarah quit her job in the nonprofit sector in 2009 and took off on a round the world trip with her husband and toddler daughter on a mission to find a oops, sorry. She I apologize. I've pressed buttons that I should not have. Okay. She finished her first novel, Hunting Lila, just before they left the UK, wrote the sequel on the beach in India, and had signed a 2-book deal with Simon and Schuster by the time they reached Bali. After living there for 5 years, during which time she wrote another 10 books, she and her family made the move to California. So when you're reading this, she's on a mission. She, has toured the world essentially, and all of these things are happening in what seems to be a lot of event and action and movement. And that actually fits very well with the thriller genre. And we'll talk a little bit more about hitting genre expectations in a few slides. So one of the other things that you may see are some actual true fun facts. These may not have anything to do with the writing, but they're interesting, and that grabs the reader's attention because now you've entertained them. So they can also use as a CTA for the other products or pursuits that the author has used. And here's an example from John Scalzi. John Scalzi writes books, which, considering where you're reading this, Makes perfect sense. He's best known for writing science fiction, including the Old Man's War series, the Hugo winning Red Shirts, and the Starter Villain. He also writes nonfiction on subjects ranging from personal finance to astronomy to film, and has written several episodes of the Love, Death, and Robots series on Netflix. He enjoys pie, as should all right thinking people. You can get to his blog by typing the word whatever into Google. No, seriously, try it. So he's pulled in this like actual engaging fun fact where if you leave the bio wherever you found this bio for a second and go look it up, you're going to go, huh, he's right. But you have actually engaged with John Scalzi more than you would have with another person because you either had to look up what they said, learn more information about the fun fact, or see if they're true or right in whatever it is that they claimed.
I mean, that's some SEO for his whatever podcast, whatever blog. But he did
Mhm.
start it a very long time ago, and it's very popular. So yeah, something just as simple as that.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the last things that you do want to think about is if there are already set tried and true expectations for your genre. There are sometimes conventions that are based upon your readership that are already set. This is an old example, but basically back when Amazon first was coming into fruition as a place for self-published authors, one of the things they would say about Christian romance writers is that their bios were all Christ, coffee, and cats. And basically, what it means is that every single one of them, for a while, would tell you what their religious designation was, something about an innocuous vice they have that makes them, either cheerful or fun, and then the object of their affection. This is also something that you'll see in military suspense and other military subgenres, where the author, generally speaking, will talk about the rank, service branch, and whatever conflict theater that they served in. So here's an example from Elizabeth Marie. She is the author of the Fake Billionaire series, which is a Christian clean romance. Elizabeth Marie lives in the northern part of the southern island of New Zealand on a farm with her husband. She has 3 grown children. She loves all things related to stories and devours books and movies. She loves to walk in the hills and hang out with her dog and friends. She also loves music, singing, and playing the guitar. She attends the local New Life Church. So this covers that Christ, coffee, and cats for clean Christian romance. But you may want to look in the genre that you're writing in and see if there's some very specific things that are expected from the readership before you write your bio. So I'm going to do a little 5-minute activity with you. I want you to look at these different elements and jot down, either write on your computer or write on a piece of paper, jot down as many things that you can think of that fit those appeals for your life. You don't have to get super specific. Just jot them down for the next 5 minutes and we'll talk about them. For those who just joined us, we are actually doing a little activity. And basically, we're doing 5 minutes. We have about 3 minutes left, excuse me, 2.5 minutes left, where we're thinking of ways that we can appeal to the audience of our genre. So some of times we do authority, meaning, what our intellectual, or excuse me, our laurels are as far as our education sometimes, if we are already popular in a particular field or with a certain group, if there are ways that we can prove that we are trustworthy to an audience, or if that we are similar and endearing to them, as well as show off our storytelling abilities or provide fun facts about our life. So I know you just came in, but I would go ahead and just start trying to jot down things that you think would be interesting to your audience, and we'll talk about them in a few minutes. All right, let's go ahead and bring this to a close. Hopefully, all of you have been able to come up with some ideas. I'd love to call on you if you don't mind. Deandra, do you have a few that you can think of that people would like about you? I see you shaking your head no, but
Well, I mean, I picked a couple like genre conventions and storytelling. Um, and my story is sort of in this paranormal area. Um, so I don't think that I could go with authority. I don't know if I could go with authority in that because there are things that happen, but they would to me that would be so unusual, but people might not believe them because they are that so unusual. So I mean, is that what you mean, to try to figure out, like, based on our story, which of these would fit our story?
well, in a way, yes, but things that have happened in your life, that fit underneath these categories, things that you think would appeal to your reader. I don't want to, say too much about anyone's particular background, but I mean, even things that you do for a living may be interesting, and fit into one of these categories, especially if you're doing something where you're showing familiarity, or that you are a trustworthy source. So I don't want to make you go too deep into it, and we could actually talk about this at a different time if you don't want to talk about your lived experiences, which is fine. But now I'm going to pick on Sean. Sean, can you think of
Yep.
some things?
Okay, I'm gonna have to wing the last line. Yeah, and I went in order, so I'm just kind of like, doing this straight up. Sean Morrissey Carroll, author of hundreds of nonfiction articles and dozens of published short stories, runs the award-winning Melange Creperie in Houston, Texas. Sean has been writing and teaching craft for almost a decade, but still struggles with using too many M dashes and doing the dishes every day. Born in Amish country in upstate New York, he has lived in Texas since last century. Though Sean is unfindable on the internet since one of the inventors of the web has the same name, he still plumbs the depths of the human condition and hopes for a climate-based technological solution in our near future.
That's a really good way to throw it all together, but you also have a lot of experience
It's a mess.
writing
It's
these.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm gonna bug Captain Russ. Russ, are you willing to talk to us about anything that you came up with?
Yeah, I started off my bio, and I have a standard bio for all my books, and it says I've lived a life of adventure, which I've translated into a trilogy of spy thrillers, and I list my books. And I said I followed those up with six more books. I had a career as a successful entrepreneur, creating new systems for the Air Force and then for the global energy industry. During my 50-year professional consulting career, my publication included topics as broad as wind energy, oil drilling, combat drone operations, U.S. rocket launching, business process improvement, knowledge management, and artificial intelligence. I've traveled and worked all over the world for and consulted for major international corporations. And this is the one that's kind of unique, I think. He was once a visiting professor in a Chinese university. During this time in the early 1980s, he assisted the CIA in gaining intelligence about Chinese computer capabilities when little was known about their abilities and ambitions. Um, I have a master's degree from MIT and graduate of the Air Force Academy. And then I list my novels and my website.
Fun. It sounds like a really good author bio for your book listings.
Yeah, it's kind of an adventure mystery kind of genre that I write in. So I think that satisfies the requirement.
All right,
Thank
let's talk
you.
a little let's talk a little bit more, and we'll use those things that you've written down, even if you don't have a fully collected bio already written. Um, don't fret. I mean, those things that you wrote down that are interesting about you, or that you think will appeal in one of those ways, you can always keep that and use it for later. Let's talk too, though, about how voice, tone, and framing impact the reader of your bio. Framing means how you shine a light, what lens you take for a particular fact in your life. And that will impact the reader in separate ways. So, fact is, I graduated from high school at 16 years old, but how I frame that can look sad, humorous, respectable. There's all sorts of different ways that I can impact the reader based upon how I frame this fact. So, for example, Shannon left school at 16 to join the workforce. Technically true. I worked two jobs in high school, and when I exited high school, I worked the entire summer full time and did eventually go to college. But I left to make money. Uh, or when I left, my first goal was to make money and be able to take care of myself. So that's kind of sad. It almost sounds like I lost opportunities, even though I did this with intention. I could shine that light on it. Another example would be Shannon graduated from high school at 16. She decided she would rather work her ass off than stay in a building where she had to ask disinterested adults when she could go pee. This is humorous. This is actually true as well. The main thing that lit a fire under my ass was I was tired of authorities. This is another one that shows how I may be an authority. Shannon studied hard and graduated at the age of 16 in the top quarter of her class. She dabbled in multiple industries before finding her first passion in emergency nursing. This is also true, and this gives this, indication that I am inspirational, or I'm respectable, or that I do have authority in whatever I'm speaking about. Regardless, these are all technically true. And they are all different facets of an event that happened in my life. Your experiences can also be looked at from different lenses. There's positive and negative in almost every circumstance that you have been in. And it's important to think about how you would frame those experiences when you're communicating with a reader. What framing would make them like you more or be more interested in what you're reading? Tone words also matter. And you want to think about if your genre entices people by pulling the reader in emotionally or pushing them out of harm's way. So there's things like the positive and negative tone, or if you are exuding safety or excitement. And all of these things should impact what tone words or mood words that you use when you frame your experiences. Another thing that I would also suggest looking at is whether or not you should utilize static or dynamic details. Now, static ones are ones that are established and rooted, and dynamic details give a sense of progression through time or movement. Description choice is often based on how authoritative you're coming across or how you want to come across, and that should be based on audience. So when you think about a lot of like roots of authority where so and so got a degree here, here, and here. They won this prize, and this prize. You get the sense that these things are established, that they happened, and they, for lack of a better word, are static. They're done. It is established. Whereas dynamic details give the expression that I'm taking you on the journey with me. And here's some examples. So Shannon has a degree in nursing from San Jacinto College and multiple certifications in developmental editing from the Editorial Freelancers Association. This is a static description, but it makes me seem very authoritative in my fields. Another example would be Shannon worked days and studied nights to obtain her degree in nursing. She then took a non-traditional path into publishing realm by bossing around a small press publisher, achieving certification from the Editorial Freelancers Association, and scouring the globe for the most amazing mentors she could find. This is also true, but it's a much more dynamic explanation of where I got to where I am today. So these descriptions will appeal to different audiences. And if I am trying to take you on a journey with me because I'm writing a romp, I would probably want to use a more dynamic expression. If I am trying to prove to you that you should listen to me because I am an expert in my field, I may want to use a more static description. So we're gonna do another 5-minute activity. So I know you all had different levels of completedness with your bio details, but pick out one or two of those facts about your life and rewrite them as sentences that highlight those facets using both the first and the second description from these groupings. So write a version, say, about your history working in China from a formal perspective, but then see if you can write one that's a little bit more informal. Can you make your experiences sound fun, or can you make them sound solemn? And then can you write them from the point of view of them being static, as in they are done, versus dynamic, where I'm taking you on the journey. You don't have to do every single one of these groups, but I would suggest doing at least one of them for one or two of your traits, and let's see how that goes. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. We will meet back here around 1:49.
Start the music.
We got about a minute and a half. And if you are, not quite done, I just want to go ahead and point out, even though I'm running through this really quickly, this will be presented on YouTube. It's already being recorded there, so you can find us, and I put the link in the chat because I know I'm going through a lot really quick. But yes,
then you
about a
can
minute now.
and then you can pause as long as you'd like.
All right, that's about time. I'm going to pick on some people again. Rick, if you're able, you want to read some of your sentences? I think Rick maybe didn't hear me. Rick, are you willing to read some of your sentences? You're on mute currently.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Rick Young, my real name, a full-time surfer who dabbled at law for 20 years and education for 36 years. Also in farming, music management, horse trading. Can't read my own writing here. Herding 3 cats, and is pretty knowledgeable about police procedural adventures. But I gave it all up to write novels, sort of like Gauguin in the 20th century in Houston. Best I can do under the circumstances.
No, it's a very good start. Were you able to write another one from a different framework, or is that the generation or the generative version of your bio?
That's all I could put together without, having some time to really think about it. Because if I did, I wouldn't have written it that way.
That's understandable. This is, all formation occurs. Hello. Sorry, I have a small child here now. All formation occurs, as a process. It's not a one and done. So thank you for sharing. Sean, I'm going to pick on you again.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about it as formal and informal, and the structure that you had before was very helpful. So the sentence I had written previously, Sean has been writing and teaching craft for nearly a decade. That's informal. Formal, Sean has been the programming director for Writespace, co-host of Writer's Lunch, and an editor with the Tomeworks Collective. It's naming the things, it's much more formal. And the familiarity part, looking at it, kind of humorous, still struggles with using too many M dashes and doing the dishes every day. Solemnity, which you got to be careful about using it in a author bio. You got to keep everything upbeat, but still, is on his fourth draft of a novella he hopes to finish before the next decade. I guess that's still funny. And loathes doing dishes. Just the word use, like just using a negative word felt like putting it more solemnly, even though it's still a little humorous.
Yeah, definitely understand that. I see more some now I can't even say it, even though I wrote it solemnity in heavier materials. Like if you're writing courtroom dramas or if you're writing women's fiction, it's not uncommon to see authors who will put I am a survivor of cancer, or I had so and so many years working with death row inmates, and you won't necessarily want to have a super solemn bio if you're not writing in those particular genres or, going down those avenues. But it's important to think about, how straight laced versus how much, wry or, funny that you add to it. I'm going to try to go a little faster because I know we're going to run late because I always run late. Ahmed, I see your
We have
hand
a
raised.
hand up from Ahmed if he wants to
Yeah.
share real quick.
I just wanted to ask about the last point that you've made. But doesn't it seem a bit too personal to add something that's not related to the material that you're writing about? I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, you don't have to actually take it, but it just seems a little bit like the author bio is an introduction to you. But if you tell somebody that you work with, I don't know, I don't know, customer service, for example, like, oh, I'm an author, but I also work in customer as a waiter in this restaurant. It's like, isn't that a little bit too much sharing?
So we'll talk about making sure you've got a healthy distance in your bio actually on the last slide, but that is a very good point and one that I think people should be thinking about when they decide what to put in their bio is how close a lens do you put on your actual life. And that's also important for if you're working underneath a pseudonym and want to maintain that distance from your normal day-to-day living. So we will talk about that. Thank you for bringing it up. I do want to talk though, let's talk about the different places where you're going to have alternate information based upon what kind of bio you're putting. So in query packets, if you are trying to query an agent and you're trying to get them to like you, you're going to send them a packet, and the total packet is usually 300-ish words. Depending on who you're sending it to, they will tell you the total length or the length of the different components. So the bio is usually the shortest component of your query packet. And normally that should only be 50 to maybe 150 words. There are some exceptions. If you have a lot of credentials and you're working in nonfiction, or if you have a lot of laurels that will help you sell the book. And then agents tend to be more forgiving for longer ones. But in general, these are going to be a lot shorter than what you might put on your website or where you might put in other public facing static locations. These are also usually written in first person. A lot of the bios that I've been showing you are in third person because generally bios are in third person. Query packets, they are in first, meaning I'm already talking directly to the agent when I send them, my story is about this. So it would be very weird to all of a sudden change into third person when I start talking about myself. So that's why in query packets it's generally first person. You generally are also going to focus on the details that endear the genre to you and will make people want to read what you are writing specific to that genre. And that's a little bit different because I've been telling you to look at these different sort of appeals and these different ways of communicating your likability. You probably aren't going to have room to do that inside of your query packet. If you do not have a formal writing education, do not fret. Most authors don't, and it's okay not to have formal authority when you start writing about stuff. If you can find a way to say people will want to read what I write because of my passion, of my experiences, that's still valid. There is a rule of three for any particular detail. We did talk a little bit about this at the very beginning between me and Sean, but if you are focusing on a detail like, say, all of your education, don't put more than 3 certifications. Pick out the most impressive ones. If you have books that are already published, pick out no more than 3 of them to talk about. Pick out the ones that are most successful. If you, for whatever reason, have fun facts or oddball material that you're adding in here, only do 3. It's just one of those human things, rule of 3, no more than 3 prices, that kind of thing. Otherwise, you're going to bog down with just one detail about you that you've just expounded on instead of really giving the agent or publisher information about you that's more holistic. When you do public appearances and you write your speaker bio, the length should be determined by the venue or organization. Some, if you are the keynote, will give you 300 to 500 words to talk about yourself. If you are doing a workshop, you may have a lot more room to also expound upon your background in teaching, and you may be able to put an entire honorarium in there. Whereas if you are going to be on a panel at a convention, you may only get 50 words. These are also more often in third person. The formality tends to be higher. You're generally sharing why you are worth listening to, and that most of the time is from an appeal to your authority. Pay attention to who your audience is and tweak your details based upon that. So if you remember the John Scalzi, I'm going to go ahead and go back so we can read it. We can see the differences between how he wrote his author bio on Amazon versus the Texas Book Festival that happened this last weekend. So his general one is John Scalzi writes books, which, considering where you're reading this, makes perfect sense. He's best known for writing science fiction, including the Old Man's War series, the Hugo-winning Red Shirts, and the Starter Villain. He also writes nonfiction on subjects ranging from personal finance to astronomy to film, and has written several episodes of the Love, Death, and Robot series on Netflix. He enjoys pie, as all should right-thinking people, and you can get to his blog by typing the word whatever into Google. No, seriously, try it. Compare that to his actual speaker bio. John Scalzi is one of the most popular science fiction authors of his generation. His novels, which include the endearing Old Man's War series, have won numerous accolades, including the Hugo and Locus Awards. He lives in Ohio and also online at scalzi.com. So when you are making your public speaker bio, you want to include details like upcoming books or productions, if that's applicable. Include follow details you wouldn't necessarily add to your other bios when they're online, because presumably they found you on one of the places they can follow you. And you also want to make sure you have a good headshot. Make sure with your headshots that you have a clear visual of your face. Do not send in a headshot that is blurry. Generally speaking, you want it to be from the front or slightly angled. Your background should be neutral or unobtrusive. Please do not do stylized editing where you've like flipped colors or made every part of your face blue and like the background orange or something, unless part of your author persona is in cosplay. Your headshot should reflect what you look like on your best day. So don't use photos that are from 30 years ago. Don't use photos where you have like altered your physical appearance. It just doesn't tend to reflect well on you as a professional. And then make sure that you're using the dimensions for the photography or for the headshot that the organization gives you. Generally speaking, they're going to want either a square or a portrait. So whenever you get your photo taken, or if you have a photo that you like, go ahead and redimension that so that you just have it on hand. I don't know if we want to do this last one because we're so late. So I'm going to move past it. But if you are interested in the future, or when we get done, you can take a few minutes to see if you can write a 50-word bio, as that's what speakers generally have to do. But I'm going to go ahead and move on because we're already at 2 o'clock and I still have a few slides. So this is kind of what Ahmed was asking about. How do you maintain healthy separation between what you put in the bio and your real life? Because you don't necessarily want to give so much detail that somebody can either dox you or that somebody can stalk you. And you want to make sure that what you're writing is relevant to your career and not necessarily so personal that it can be a cause of embarrassment for you or the people around you. So you want to use factual information. Even if you're using a pseudonym, you want to make sure that you're not lying. However, you want to make sure that what you are portraying is technically truthful, but you alter the scale of those details to paint a picture of your life that you're actually comfortable with. So if you are a waiter and you work at a particular restaurant, I think that was the example. I wouldn't necessarily indicate, I work over here at Chili's on 5th Street. That's a little bit too close a lens. But you might say that you've worked in customer support for a number of years, and you can turn that into a joke if you want to, or you can explain how doing this has impacted your writing if you can find a relevant space for it. So practice being technically truthful while also altering the scale of those details. Blur the lens of the details you share. So for instance, if you are ex-military, you might say that you have a history of live combat, but you don't necessarily need to say when you were inside of the military or that you engaged in Operation Iraqi Freedom in your bio while still being truthful. And then set boundaries before you write your bio, or put a permanent place or a permanent description of you online or anywhere else that people can access. So say, I'll talk about my own childhood, but I'm not going to share any of my family's current circumstances. Or I won't talk about my children, but I will talk about my pets. which is a lot, which is what a lot of authors actually do. I won't list my employer, but I can list my profession or my field. I will share my state, but not my city or region. So these are things people do to add healthy separation between their either online presence or their bio, while still being truthful enough to be engaging to the reading audience. Okay, so that's the end of our session. I hope you guys have learned a lot. Even if you haven't quite got your author bio, you have hopefully a list of really interesting things that you can look at now from the perspective of what's going to be most interesting to my particular audience in the genre that I like to write in. If you are still kind of confused, one of the things that I would suggest doing is finding other people who work in the subgenre that you're also writing in. Paranormal romance, you know, domestic thrillers, whatever it is, figure out who the bestsellers are there and start looking at their bios as well and say, how are they appealing to the audience? I mean, most of the time they're going to indicate that they're a best-selling author, but aside from that, how are they appealing to the audience? And this can give you an idea of where you should start for your own bio. It can be really difficult to try to talk about yourself, especially if this is something that you're brand new to. It feels narcissistic or silly, or like people aren't going to actually like you because you're coming across as vain. So it's important to see how other people do it and still maintain that likability to give yourself the courage to talk about yourself in a positive light sometimes. But I definitely urge you to do a little bit of research so that you can feel more confident in your own endeavors. So that's what we have. You can find me at tomeworksediting.com, excuse me, tomeworksedits.com. You can find all of our other links at biosite/tomeworksedits. And we are on a lot of socials under Tomeworks Edits as well. If you have questions or if you want to, share information, you can find me at shannon@tomeworksedits.com. And if you mention Writer's Lunch because you're looking for an editor, you'll get 10% off your first service. Our consultations are free. Sean, did I miss any questions in the chat?
I wouldn't really say so. There's some people tossing things like Rhonda talking about her bio and stuff. Lots of thank yous, absolutely. And what else can I say? Yeah, just general things. I tossed the Patreon up there as well, and the AMA next week. I ask an editor hour. Will be about own voices. But also bring your questions. You can join us on Discord or on the Patreon, and get your questions at the top of the queue. Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you guys for staying late. Those of you who are still here, I hope you've learned a lot. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Good luck on your bios.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.